Chapter 2 of The Devil in Iron by Robert E. Howard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2. Jehungir Agha, Lord of Khawarizm and keeper of the coastal border, scanned once more the ornate parchment scroll with its peacock seal, and laughed shortly and sardonically. "Well?" bluntly demanded his counselor, Ghaznavi. Jehungir shrugged his shoulders. He was a handsome man with the merciless pride of birth and accomplishment. "The king grows short of patience," said he. "In his own hand he complains bitterly of what he calls my failure to guard the frontier. By Tarim, if I cannot deal a blow to these robbers of the steppes, Khawarizm may own a new lord." Ghaznavi tugged his gray shot beard in meditation. Yezdigerd, king of Turan, was the mightiest monarch in the world. In his palace, in the great port city of Aghrapur, was heaped the plunder of empires. His fleets of purple-sailed war galleys had made Vilayet and Hyrkanian Lake. The dark-skinned people of Zamora paid him tribute, as did the eastern province of Koth. The Shemites bowed to his rule as far west as Sushan. His armies ravaged the borders of Stygia in the south and the snowy lands of the Hyperboreans in the north. His riders bore torch and sword westward into Brythumia and Ophir and Corinthia, even to the borders of Nemedia. His gilt-helmeted swordmen had trampled hosts under their horses' hoofs, and walled cities went up in flames at his command. In the glutted slave markets of Aghrapur, Sultanapur, Khawarizm, Shapur, and Khorusan, women were sold for 3 small silver coins. Blonde Brythunians, tawny Stygians, dark-haired Samorians, ebon Kushites, olive-skinned Shemites. Yet, while his swift horsemen overthrew armies far from his frontiers, at his very borders an audacious foe plucked his beard with a red, dripping, and smoke-stained hand. On the broad steppes between the Sea of Vilayet and the borders of the easternmost Hyborian kingdoms, a new race had sprung up in the past half-century, formed originally of fleeing criminals, broken men, escaped slaves, and deserting soldiers. They were men of many crimes and countries, some born on the steppes, some fleeing from the kingdoms in the west. They were called Kozak, which means wastrel. Dwelling on the wild open steppes, owning no law but their own peculiar code, they had become a people capable of defying the Grand Monarch. Ceaselessly they raided the Turanian frontier, retiring in the steppes when defeated. With the pirates of Vilayet, men of much the same breed, they harried the coast, preying off the merchant ships which plied between the Hyrkanian ports. "How am I to crush these wolves?" demanded Jehungir. "If I follow them into the steppes, I run the risk either of being cut off and destroyed, or having them elude me entirely and burn the city in my absence. Of late they have been more daring than ever." "That is because of the new chief who has risen among them," answered Ghaznavi. "You know whom I mean." "Aye," replied Jehungir feelingly. "It is that devil Conan. He is even wilder than the Kozaks, yet he is crafty as a mountain lion." "It is more through wild animal instinct than through intelligence," answered Ghaznavi. "The other Kozaks are at least descendants of civilized men. He is a barbarian, but to dispose of him would be to deal them a crippling blow." "But how?" demanded Jehungir. "He has repeatedly cut his way out of spots that seemed certain death for him, and by instinct or cunning he has avoided or escaped every trap set for him. For every beast and for every man there is a trap he will not escape," quoth Ghaznavi. When we have parleyed with the Kozaks for the ransom of captives, I have observed this man, Conan. He has a keen relish for women and strong drink. Have your captive Octavia fetched here." Jehungir clapped his hands, and an impassive Kushite eunuch, an image of shining ebony and silken pantaloons, bowed before him and went to do his bidding. Presently he returned, leading by the wrist a tall, handsome girl, whose yellow hair, clear eyes, and fair skin identified her as a pure-blooded member of her race. Her scanty silk tunic, girded at the waist, displayed the marvelous contours of her magnificent figure. Her fine eyes flashed with resentment, and her red lips were sulky, but submission had been taught her during her captivity. She stood with hanging head before her master, until he motioned her to a seat on the divan beside him. Then he looked inquiringly at Ghaznavi. "We must lure Conan away from the Kozaks," said the counselor abruptly. "Their war camp is at present pitched somewhere on the lower reaches of the Zaporoska River, which, as you well know, is a wilderness of reeds, a swampy jungle in which our last expedition was cut to pieces by those masterless devils." "I am not likely to forget that," said Jehungir wryly. "There is an uninhabited island near the mainland," said Ghaznavi, "known as Zapor the Fortified, because of some ancient ruins upon it. There is a peculiarity about it which makes it perfect for our purpose. It has no shoreline, but rises sheer out of the sea in cliffs 150 feet tall. Not even an ape could negotiate them. The only place where a man can go up or down is a narrow path on the western side that has the appearance of a worn stair carved into the solid rock of the cliffs. If we could trap Conan on that island alone, we could hunt him down at our leisure with bows, as men hunt a lion." "As well wish for the moon," said Jehungir impatiently. "Shall we send him a messenger bidding him climb the cliffs and await our coming?" "In effect, yes." Seeing Jehungir's look of amazement, Ghaznavi continued. "We will ask for a parley with the Kozaks in regard to prisoners at the edge of the steppes by Fort Ghori. As usual, we will go with a force and encamp outside the castle. They will come with an equal force, and the parley will go forward with the usual distrust and suspicion. But this time we will take with us, as if by casual chance, your beautiful captive." Octavia changed color and listened with intensified interest as the counselor nodded toward her. "She will use all her wiles to attract Conan's attention. That should not be difficult. To that wild reaver she should appear a dazzling vision of loveliness. Her vitality and substantial figure should appeal to him more vividly than would one of the doll-like beauties of your seraglio." Octavia sprang up, her white fists clenched, her eyes blazing, and her figure quivering with outraged anger. "You would force me to play the trollop with this barbarian?" she exclaimed. "I will not. I am no market-block slut to smirk and ogle at a steppes robber. I am the daughter of a Nemedian lord." "You were of the Nemedian nobility before my riders carried you off," returned Jehungir cynically. "Now you are merely a slave who will do as she is bid." "I will not," she raged. "On the contrary," rejoined Jehungir with studied cruelty, "you will. I like Ghaznavi's plan. Continue, prince among counselors." "Conan will probably wish to buy her. You will refuse to sell her, of course, or to exchange her for Hyrkanian prisoners. He may then try to steal her, or take her by force, though I do not think even he would break the parley truce. Anyway, we must be prepared for whatever he might attempt. Then, shortly after the parley, before he has time to forget all about her, we will send a messenger to him under a flag of truce, accusing him of stealing the girl and demanding her return. He may kill the messenger, but at least he will think that she has escaped. Then we will send a spy, a Yuetshi fisherman will do, to the Kozak camp, who will tell Conan that Octavia is hiding on Xapur. If I know my man, he will go straight to that place. But we do not know that he will go alone, Jehungir argued. Does a man take a band of warriors with him when going to a rendezvous with a woman he desires? Retorted Ghaznavi. The chances are that he will go alone, but we will need to take care of the other alternative. We will not await him on the island where we might be trapped ourselves, but among the reeds of a marshy point which juts out to within 1,000 yards of Xapur. If he brings a large force, we'll beat a retreat and think up another plot. If he comes alone or with a small party, we will have him. Depend upon it, he will come, remembering your charming slave's smiles and meaning glances. I will never descend to such shame. Octavia was wild with fury and humiliation. I will die first. You will not die, my rebellious beauty, said Jehungir, but you will be subjected to a very painful and humiliating experience. He clapped his hands, and Octavia paled. This time it was not the Kushite who entered, but a Shemite, a heavily muscled man of medium height, with a short, curled, blue-black beard. Here is work for you, Gilzan, said Jehungir. Take this fool and play with her a while, yet be careful not to spoil her beauty. With an inarticulate grunt, the Shemite seized Octavia's wrist, and at the grasp of his iron fingers, all the defiance went out of her. With a piteous cry, she tore away and threw herself on her knees before her implacable master, sobbing incoherently for mercy. Jehungir dismissed the disappointed torturer with a gesture, and said to Ghaznavi, "If your plan succeeds, I will fill your lap with gold." End of chapter 2.